then you can start recording. The Zoning and Planning Board of Appeals hears and acts on appeals for variances from city zoning requirements. The members of the board are appointed, and the board acts as a quasi-judicial body during these appeals, which means that appeals are presented like a case is presented in court. The board acts as the judge and determines whether to grant the appeal by majority vote. For each item, we will hear from the applicant and staff, as well as any additional witnesses where appropriate. If you are the applicant for an item on tonight's agenda, please come and take a seat at the table when your item is called. So we're going to the agenda. First agenda item, I need to get to my agenda, is to do roll call. All right, Noel Halverson, not quite yet. Barb Dorf here. Steve Schugert. Steve, did I do that right?
Yes. Close enough anyway.
Okay, you're there. Corey.
Here.
Josh Cook.
He is excused.
Okay, and Benjamin Andrews.
Here.
Okay. I will entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to
Motion to approve.
Motion for approval by probably, that was Benjamin, right? Who moved to approve? I can't see you guys, sorry. Motion to approve was made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I will now entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay,
I can
is there a
second.
second? Okay, the approval of the minutes has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Regular business. I think I do the conflicts of interest each individual time. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so I'll just read the item here and then we'll do the conflicts of interest. Number 1, Appeal 2401. Consideration with possible action on a variance request submitted by Troy Kapelzinski, close, property owner and applicant requesting creating a driveway off alley exceeding width standards for a single or two-family residence at 820/822 East Walnut Street. Now, conflicts. It is the goal of the Board of Appeals to provide and conduct a hearing that is fair in form, appearance, and substance. To ensure that this hearing satisfies these goals, each member of the Board of Appeals please confirm the following for this appeal by stating, I confirm. I do not have a conflict of interest in this matter. I confirm.
I confirm.
Okay. I have not received any communication from any person or party about this matter. I confirm.
I confirm.
Okay. We confirmed. All right. So at this time, the oath can be administered to staff and members of the public. Do I do the oath?
Yes.
Okay. I wish I could see you. I wish I had a view. Okay, I can see Corey now. That's about it. All right. All right. So let's have the person come to the table, and he just did. I can see him. We'll start with, should we start with staff?
Yes.
All right. Please state your name and address for the record.
Troy Kapelzinski, address 802 East Walnut, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54301.
Okay.
Our staff member is going to speak first.
Okay.
So you know.
Okay. So the staff member, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
All right.
All
Go
right.
ahead, John.
What you're looking at here is looking at 44-1746 sub 3 sub G alley drives. The driveway opening for an alley shall not exceed 30 feet in width or with the garage itself. So what we have here is a two-family property on East Walnut. I note this is an alley that actually is side loaded, which is atypical for most alleys. Normally you expect them to be in a rear loaded fashion, which you see then for the majority of the rest of the block to the south. So this property has a 3-stall garage that comes off of the alley and has pavement in front of it. And as of now has some gravel that's in a legal non-conforming state north of the drive. So what is in question here with this is when you take the cumulative total of the opening, it exceeds 30 feet. The code itself states you can either have the opening go to the driveway itself or an extra 30 feet. Why that? There are a number of older properties in the city that don't have a garage. And that's common enough in these parts of the city, and it's common in areas where you typically see alleyways in some other parts of the city. So to give some background, looking back through time, this area has had gravel as a pavement for many years, looking back to cars that have parked. The garage itself came in around 2020. That was legal, met the setbacks, all good. It's just that this area to the north was not paved. And so you can see in these aerial photos going on back to 2000, that cars have been parked on some sort of gravel surface north of where the existing garage is for many years. So what the applicant is searching for is to have this 27-foot wide grass-crete surface area adjacent to the existing driveway. So we have it'd be one continuous driveway opening. So as noted, here's the garage, driveway, 18 feet typical depth for a center for a driveway for a car that can give you 3 stalls. 27 divided by 3, or sorry, by 9 is 3 stalls, with then the house being up along Walnut. This could be another picture of the overall parcel itself, showing that the alley itself is adjacent and sorry, the alley is a side loading of the driveway. The grass crete is adjacent to it. Applicant has provided a few different examples as far as what this grass crete could look like. So it's not a typical pavement that's being proposed here. The pavement is going to have a grass crete, because what it would look like essentially when the growing season occurs and when the grass becomes mature. Looking back on this, as far as ways where this could become legal if you were to avoid this process, could you put more parking in the backyard? The answer is yes, there are ways. Now, as we're looking at this, if you were to put in a drive, see a lot of triangle tapers, and you wanted to put one single stall upwards of 12 feet on the side of the garage, you can do that with a triangle taper leading back to a single stall in the back of the garage. Additionally, if you wanted to put in more stalls, because you could put in upwards of 4 stalls in the backyard, so long as you met all the rest of the bulk requirements, such as impervious surface, things of that sort, you'd have to put in a drive here that is off of the main drive that is 12 feet in width at max, that comes back this way to put in some more stalls. It would be tight, but in theory, you could do that. What comes into play here is you can have either the parking leading directly to the driveway or to the garage, which already exists, or you can have the 30-foot wide area for parking that doesn't lead to the garage, but you can't have both in the same area. And so that's the question to consider here for the board.
Okay, are there any questions for staff? Oh man, I can't see. If someone, just call out if you have a question, because I really can't.
I'll just throw it out there. So the grass crete, even though it's permeable, does count as a paved surface, because I'm just, it's an odd material.
Yep, so it still counts as a paved surface. It would not count towards impervious surface numbers on the property. Because it's a pervious component, but it still counts as a paved surface, yes.
It's so contradictory.
It's, yeah,
Well,
Okay.
and in
Tim,
permit,
okay,
property,
go ahead.
that's pertaining to how does water infiltrate the soil?
Yeah.
Whereas the grass creek is still an area where you can park cars on top of, still use that functionality, so. It's two different lenses that we're looking at here. What this question comes down to is more of a width along an alleyway. And I will note, when it comes to, the next subsection of that code that we are looking at right here. The maximum amount of linear footage one can have for driveway purposes on a property is 50% of the overall length that the normally rear yard, but the side yard is up against the alleyway. This is still far below that number. It does not achieve 50% because of how long this side yard is relative to a more typical rear yard lot, which usually are narrower.
So the length is okay, is what you're saying?
The length in comparison to another part of this alleyway driveway code is that the most a driveway width can take up on a parcel is 50% of the overall parcel touching the alley. This does not achieve that number, so that part is fine. If this
This one's, okay, the width part is fine. The width or the length?
the width of the overall opening compared to the alleyway is fine in comparison to subsection G, which
Okay,
that the overall width of a alleyway of a drive along an alley cannot exceed 2%. The issue with this is you can either have a driveway going directly to a garage or a driveway going a maximum of 30 feet in width, not going to a garage. This has both though, so the or is not accomplished in this situation. So the applicant is looking to make a driveway that in total is about 63 linear feet compared to the 30 foot, which is the max number, or the width of the garage, which happens to be 33 linear feet, which that's legal. It can be, it's fine.
and right now it's just a bunch of gravel, right?
Right now, it's a bunch of gravel to the north of the existing driveway, yes. Yep.
So, and I know there's a reason for this, I'd just like to have it explained to me. Why can't they just put a barrier or 6 feet between the existing driveway and the new driveway to make it not contiguous?
So when it comes to that, you can have one or the other. You can have either the driveway, which leads to a garage, or if there wasn't a garage on the property, you can have a driveway, which is a max of 30 feet in width. This has a
You can't
garage,
have 2 driveways.
can't have two driveways, no.
That's what I thought. All right. I knew there was a reason. I'm just trying to figure, make it sense in my head. Thank you.
But the gravel is fine.
The gravel is legal non-conforming.
Yes.
It's
Art, you can go first.
it's non-conforming, did you say?
It is, but it's legal as of now because there's nothing wrong with it. It's been maintained. But if you were looking to improve it, then it would not be conforming. It would not be legal at that point, which is what the applicant's trying to do.
Trying to improve it. Okay, who wants to go next?
Oh, you're next. So it says here on the application that the applicant met with staff to discuss this application. Was the alternatives discussed at that time?
Yeah, we've discussed the alternatives as far as placing this a lane to drive to the north side of the garage to place this within the interior of the lot. We did discuss that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to hear from the applicant then? Or do you have another any questions, more questions for staff?
No more questions on the
Hear from the
application.
applicant.
Staff.
Okay, then I will swear in the applicant at this point. So he's at the table. Please state your name and address for the record again.
Okay. Troy Kapelzinski, 802 East Walnut, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54301.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth?
I swear.
Thank you. All right. Would you like to present your case?
All right, my case coming for applying for the variance and going past the code of the one piece that we're trying to get is the fact that it's a 30 feet maximum width, or 50% of your driveway, or 50% of the end load, and we don't fall into that. So this is a side loaded yard, so we come in and we park from the side, right? So it's 150 feet long, okay? So that whole alleyway being completely different and compared to a lot of other places around there, everybody has just naturally created driveways and parking spots around there. There are several apartment complexes all around that area. And so the parking it naturally formed into this. That's why that probably was grass at one point, turned into gravel just by people pulling onto it. There is one picture, the latest one that I had sent in, that shows people parking just on the grass because there's parking problems. So that we looked at that and we're like, okay, so people are using this, but we don't want it just to be a bare landscape. Okay, so I came here to find out what the options were. We found the options that we could go around and in there, but that will eliminate the whole gathering spot. And the bonfire barbecue area that we have and the garden area that's there. So the whole idea was like, okay, well, I mean, if this is a residential area, the purpose of a residential area is to live and to be around your neighbors and to, have gathering spots. Okay. If we do it legally, it forces us into that area, which would then force that gathering spot to be out on Walnut Street, the front of the house area, the north part of the house, which, I mean, people with kids, they don't want to have their kids out playing near a busy road. Okay, they want to have their kids kind of in the backyard where they can see them. So that is where we said, okay, if we want to we got the garage and we got the driveway in there, and we realized there's just a little bit more parking that is needed, or it gets really crowded and people were using this, and we said, okay, if we can maintain the existing garden barbecue area, but yet make a grassy area but still allow it to park on, and we found the product Grasscrete, and that seemed like a instant answer. Okay, it gives you both. It gives you the perviousness so that we don't have stormwater always just running off into this, and it gives us the grass that we want to keep. All right, and so that was where we arrived at, and so we came to apply for a variance after that.
Thank you so much. Are there questions? Yes, Corey.
I guess my first question is looking at the basically area map with all the ownership pieces. It looks like your collective owns 3, maybe there might be 4 properties in there. How many actual residents do you, I guess, serve in that area? And are they like single family homes that have been converted to duplexes, apartments, or, I mean, it's in my mind, it looks like you have, yes, it's a residential, but the ownership being an LLC is a business. So it's a conflicting piece in my mind. So I'm just trying to understand how many people actually live right in that area.
All right, so that 8, 10, 8, 12, we do not own, and that is an upper lower. And there's 2 families that live in there. The one we own, 820, 822 is an upper lower, and we have both units filled there. The 113 and 115 is also an upper lower, and there is both apartments are filled there, so there's 2 families there. And then we have another family in the 117 property, and that's we maintain it as a single family home.
So technically 5 families in that vicinity.
Yes, including that we have rented to.
Right.
And then another 2, so 7, especially in the 810, 812, that property.
So when you say there's like the gathering place by this parking lot area, I guess we'll just label it, do like all those families like share that, or is it just the residents of that one property at the 820, 822?
In the past, others have shared it because everybody knows each other there as neighbors. But that backyard has had many a bonfire and gathering and barbecue gatherings, so that's why we didn't wanna. We want to encourage neighborly associations. We didn't want to create spaces that don't encourage that.
Okay. So essentially, if there's two families living on that property and we're supposed to basically consider this just for that property in itself, why do you need that much parking?
Visitors, frequently just in simple, practical sense, there has been plenty of times that parking has been full. And people are forced, to park over across the street or on a side road. And we've had issues where we had to call tow trucks because they're parked in front of the garage and our tenants can't get out to go to work. So parking has just presented itself as an issue for all the years we've owned the area. So that is why we're really wanted to just leave it like it was, leave it as a parking spot, but beautify it and add it to the Grasscrete so that it still kind of looks like a green space instead of just dirty gravel.
So I guess kind of the last follow-up then there, how does that differ from any other resident in the area that would be confined to sticking to just the standard garages and parking spots?
Well, it would differ because we have the long length, we have the 150 length. All the other ones are technically rear entrance areas. So that's the piece that we're really trying to get over, is the side entrance. That's the uniqueness of the property.
The question then, so you intend for people who don't live at 820, 822 to use that as parking?
If we have overflow, yes, and there's consensual agreement between the people, the neighborhood place. We've always told our tenants, they control their parking. If they have a problem, they come to us. But if they want to let other neighbors park there, it's up to them. It's their place.
Okay. So how many parking spots do you have without that gravel area?
Without that gravel area, we have 3 outside and 2 inside. The third stall of the garage is actually used as a utility storage for snow blowers, lawnmowers, things like that.
Okay, so 2 inside and 2 outside essentially.
Yeah.
3 outside.
Okay, makes sense. Okay.
So I'll quickly throw a question out here. So, just kind of going back to the alternatives here is that when staff presented the alternatives that would be conforming, what were your thoughts on it in comparison to submitting, a variance application?
But the thoughts on it would be that we would not do that because it would destroy the barbecue bonfire pit area. And we want to maintain that because that's more important to have a neighborly gathering spot and a safe family area to meet in. And we would just leave the property as is and maintain the existing gravel as we purchased it.
And I just had a quick question. Is it okay if I have a question for staff at this time afterwards, or should I wait till afterwards?
You should wait until.
That's good.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, then I guess at this time we will.
Before you move.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Question for staff, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So if this was approved, if variance was approved and it was under the condition of the additional width, would there be any need for any specific conditions that would be associated with the type of pavement? Or could it be, if it was replaced later on, if we're just approving the width, it could technically be pavement if it was?
Yeah, the question in play is pavement being wider.
Yes.
So, you as a board can place conditions on an appeal. We look at this through the lens because the rest of the bulk requirements are met. There is not a need to have grasscrete.
Yeah.
It would be required, but if you put that a pervious type of pavement was required in that area, it could be noted.
So it was a little hard to hear, but what I'm understanding is that we would want to be putting a condition on that. If something else were put there, it would be a pervious kind of covering in the future. It doesn't have to be grasscrete.
Right. Yeah, it's your discretion as a board if you want to place condition to the effect of saying a pervious pavement must be in that area.
Okay,
You can
okay,
condition,
we
yes.
could say that. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
why? All right.
Anybody else have anything before we deliberate?
I'm good on that.
Lindsay? Okay,
No, you're good.
Is there anybody in the audience who may wish to speak?
was there anyone?
There is not. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so then we'll close the floor for right now. And we don't need to vote to close the floor, do we, Lindsay?
You're not correct. You can move on
Okay,
to questions.
and we'll move on and we will deliberate. So, commission.
Can
You're
we
fine.
see
Can
the
anyone speak?
standards?
What?
I want
Sorry?
to see the standards as far as like there you go. That's the,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have those sitting in front of me too. But as I'm chairing, I will let you guys talk first. Unless you want me to say one first.
I'm gonna speak to 5.
Okay,
I feel like it's more of a self-imposed hardship with regard to what they want to do. I mean, they can comply with it. With regard into the code, is it inconvenient? Absolutely. The intent to me feels more of providing the additional parking space for visitors, not necessarily for the actual residents that are residing there for their vehicles. With 2 families, 5 parking spots for that type in that, I'm guessing in that community should be reasonable for a standard family vehicles. Visitors, yeah, it makes sense. May have to find either, I mean, I'm not familiar with like street parking or how far they'd have to go for street parking, but it doesn't seem reasonable to me that they can't comply with regard to the codes.
so does anyone
mean,
have
I
a
agree.
different take on number 5?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Corey. I mean, you're right in terms of I don't have a lot of sympathy with the argument for visitors.
Wait, who's
The only
talking right
thing
now?
that
Benjamin.
it's Steve. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Oh, Steve, are there?
okay,
I
Steve.
thought Ben was talking.
Yeah, Steve, say one, start over again, okay?
Okay, I was going to say, Corey, I agree with you on this for the most part. I just the question I don't think that the argument that it'd be easier for visitors to park is persuasive. I also don't find providing parking for the neighbors to be at all persuasive. Even if the applicant owns multiple properties there, these have to be considered separately as far as I'm concerned. The thing that kind of gets me though, and the reason why I'm trying to find a way around number 5 is right now it's gravel. Okay. They're parking on it, and there's no plans to change that. If we say no, it's just going to leave it gravel.
Yeah.
And it's still going to happen. And my objections about having extra parking there will mean nothing. It'll just look a lot uglier than what it
Right.
is now. So
hear
if
you.
this was a green space and you were going to ask for grasscrete, I don't think I'd even bat an eye twice. I'd just say no. But since it's already gravel and the things that I object to are already happening except in worse form, it's hard to get around that. Now, the hardship here, the only thing I can say for the hardship, and this would be kind of going in along with the preservation of property rights, you could use this in either spot, would be around the idea that the way the backyard is configured, looking at the overhead views and the maps and everything else, you know, there is the idea that you do have to have some place to enjoy your yard if you have a yard
Mhm.
space. And to
Mhm.
me, the hardship is not necessarily that that space would be necessarily up against the alley. I don't find that argument persuasive either, but I do think that you don't get much of a space because of the extra space and the taper and everything else that comes in. It becomes awkward, and I believe one of the maps showed a tree there, although I don't see it on the overheads. That may just be my interpretation of the overhead. Yeah, it said there's a
Catalpa
I
tree.
don't know what kind of tree that is, but it's a
Mm,
tree, so
okay.
that's all that matters. Um, So in my mind, looking at the way this goes and the relatively small size of the backyard in the space there, to me, um, providing for the enjoyment of the space and use of the property, as well as providing an area that is conducive for a family to live, would be a hardship in my mind. And I think I could probably speak to the rest of them, but I'd also like to give a chance for others to speak.
Does anyone else have anything to say um, about the rest of them?
Yeah,
Otherwise, we'll let Steve talk, but go ahead.
yeah, well, I do understand that it's not a great argument for parking, but, you know, there has been documented issues according to the applicant that there is some parking concerns, even if there is visitors that are parking in the spot, and as was previously noted, this is currently utilized for parking. I think the intent is there to provide some beautification efforts, although it's not strictly about the approval, but I think that that's the intent of it. I would say partially that, you know, the hardship, I can see from a parking perspective that that could be an argument, but I would agree further on Steve's argument that, you know, based on the characteristics of the property that, you know, just utilizing the space, not necessarily for parking, but for enjoyment of the property, that could also be seen as hardship. And just kind of categorizing what the arguments have been further, if we're talking about the preservation of property rights, that fits along those lines in terms of absence of detriment. If it's utilized for parking already, if you're going to be putting in a space that's a little bit more formalized, I don't foresee anything that would necessarily be detrimental to any of the neighboring property owners. Exceptional circumstances, we're still talking about the rear loaded alley characteristics of the space. The only thing that I might want to leave open for Steve is if we're talking about preservation of intent.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like what I'm hearing. Steve, you have something for preservation of intent?
Well, I mean, you know, so the intent there is to ensure some kind of uniformity in the city. In this particular case, I don't think this isn't an ask that is designed to push the ordinance aside or otherwise belittle it or make a mockery of it. In this particular case, I think it's a natural result of an older neighborhood with a rear loading alley and a very long and very skinny property, which, I mean, if we were going to redistrict Navarino, we probably wouldn't lay it out like that. But that was done a very long time ago before we had codes. So I don't think that this is inconsistent with the spirit and purpose or intent of the regulations, especially in the district for which it was requested. I don't feel that it offends the law in a way that I would consider to be detrimental to the city of Green Bay or its residents.
Would you like to make a motion, Steve?
I would like to make a motion to approve as the applicant asked. I don't see a need to put an additional condition on it, but if anybody else would like to add that to it or suggest I should. That was discussed earlier about requiring that to be permeable.
Would anyone else feel the need for that condition, or would we like to just go with Steve's motion?
Everyone's
Okay.
motion. Yeah.
Okay, who's seconding the motion?
Can we just have a little bit of discussion about the condition?
Sure. Oh, sure. I didn't hear you say anything. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Barb, you should ask for a second on the motion first, and then you can discuss the motion.
Can we have a second on the motion?
I'll
I'm gonna
second.
Okay, you can second it. You can
Right.
second it. Okay. All right, now let's discuss the motion. And so now the motion is without a condition on it. So
Condition,
now,
yep.
what? With,
Yes, you're absolutely
right.
right.
That's why I was kind of waiting to get a second till we could see if we wanted a condition, but go ahead. Do you want to talk about a condition or the motion? Whoever wants to talk.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that without it, it's still the belief that the preservation of intent is there. Is that the understanding?
Steve, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I personally, I believe so. I mean, the fact that they're willing to do something that is more beautification than just concrete, I actually appreciate that quite a bit. But that being said, I don't also think it would be unreasonable to put the stipulation on there as well.
I don't think the stipulation would need to be there to keep it like a grasscrete or something like that. If you're looking at perpetuity of the property, the next owner of this property, if they come against that, are they going to come back to this board and ask for, okay, well, that was made back in this year and stuff like that, and now the times have changed again. This whole lot changed with whatever stuff like that. Maybe they reorganize it, maybe it all gets wiped away or whatever happens, but I don't feel putting any condition on what has to be there should be made.
Okay. Is there a motion to amend the current motion?
No, I think although it's good, in terms of intent, I don't think making an amendment would be fair for the preservation of property rights of the owner.
All right. Are we ready to vote on this motion? Okay. All those in favor of approving this variance, say aye.
I
Aye. I only heard my aye and your aye, Steve. Are there any other ayes out there?
Aye.
Benjamin? Okay, all opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so this is approved 3-1. Applicant, you have your variance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was good discussion, people. Very good. All right, now I have to get out of here. Could you throw the agenda up on the screen? This covers my whole screen.
Good night.
Then I can't see underneath my screen. All right. This is number 2. Consideration and possible action on a variance. It's not, what goes off the edge. It's too big. Something Erforth of Mach 4 Engineering and Surveying something, and Chris Patel of Early Childhood's.
want me to read it,
Childcare
Barbara?
Please, because it's too big. It goes
Okay.
off my screen. It's
Sure,
too
sure,
big.
that's
Sorry.
fine. I've got multiple
Thank you.
monitors. It's easier.
Thank
This is
you.
for appeal number 2402, consideration with possible action on a request from Joel Erfurth of Mach 4 Engineering and Surveying LLC applicant, and Chris Patel of Early Child Care 2 LLC property owner, requesting to exceed drive-through facility standards for placement of drive-through window and menu board between the front facade of a building and street at 3112 Finger Road.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now I am going to ask if there are any conflicts, and I'd like you to respond. The board, please, to ensure the hearing satisfies these goals, each member of the Board of Appeals, please confirm the following for this particular appeal by stating I confirm. I do not have a conflict of interest in this matter. I confirm.
I confirm.
Did everybody state I confirm? Oh, okay. I have not received any communication from any person or party about this matter. I confirm.
I confirm.
I confirm.
Okay. So we are going to go to staff and I'll do the oath. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Oh, and the applicant will.
You can come up to the tablet there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll swear you in a little while,
Sure.
but we'll hear from the staff first.
Okay, so we're looking at chapter
Did you-
44.
John, did you swear you in the
Yes.
second time?
Yeah.
I
this-
did,
yeah,
I did.
I got
44.
distracted, Barb, I apologize.
That's right.
44-1584, sub M, sub 1, no drive-through windows on any board shall be located between the front face of the principal building and the street. So, in this situation here, we have a property that is, located on 3 different streets, so it has street fronts. Along Mason, Ontario, and Finger. This is what the property looks like as you're looking eastbound on Ontario. South is Mason, north is Finger. On the south side, there's a number of businesses. On the west side, it is an empty field at the moment. And on the north side, there's a Wisconsin Bell substation at the corner, then followed by a handful of duplex buildings on the north side of the road. What you're seeing right here is a site plan that's provided for a multi-tenant commercial operation. No tenants known at the moment, but as far as being typical requirements, I think it's all right with the exception of, in this case, the applicant's looking to place a in tenant 1 spot, a drive-through lane, have a menu board and a window that would face both Finger Road for the menu board. That's going to be the area that's just to the north of where tenant 2 and 3 is. And a window board, sorry, a window to pick up the food, presumably food for this tenant, over on the west side. Once again, we don't know the tenants, but restaurants are allowed. Can this be for a restaurant use? So this is a conditional use permit property. I want to give this a chicken and egg situation right now. The applicant also applied for a conditional use. So that's going through the process of approvals through Plan Commission for said conditional use. The conditional use being restaurants are permitted, but drive-throughs are a conditional use. So I'll note to this board, if we feel that this should be taken up once a CUP is approved and tabled, understood. But you can do action, if their action is to approve this though, then there should be a condition noting that a conditional use permit must also be approved to make this whole. To wrap this up, because this property happens to have 3 different front facing areas on Finger, Ontario, and Mason, the window board, or the window and the menu board face out towards the street. The only area where in this configuration, a pickup for the window and a menu board could be placed would be along the eastern portion of this property between this wall that faces up towards Finger and a wall that faces up towards Mason. Placing it somewhere in the middle of that, of both any window or menu boards and any windows, has to be placed in that area where it's between the front facades. Otherwise, there is no place for it on this property. And that's what I have.
Wow. Are there any questions for staff?
Why is this coming to us and it hasn't passed through the rest of it? Because we're kind of the choice of last resort, aren't we?
Right, so it's a chicken and an egg situation here. In either situation, somebody's gonna, either the plan commission or this variance board is gonna come back and say, we need to place a condition on this. It is understood that if this board feels it's appropriate to wait, it can wait. It would mean this has to wait through March, to the March meeting. So this is placed on here for consideration to see if you felt it was appropriate to deny this immediately. That'd be just one more step to know, okay, that can't happen on this property. It would take steps in for the plan commission in their actions here in the future. So if this board felt it was appropriate to table it, that makes sense. And this can wait until there's a complete action done for the conditional use permit through plan commission.
Thank you.
Board, what do you think?
Before I want to go down either delaying or taking it up, can we get a larger, broader satellite view? I just want to see the area that this is more in. If you are on, otherwise I suppose I could look it up myself further, but it seems to be, it's a bridge between residential and commercial. And it's zone commercial, I'm guessing.
It's zone C1, so restaurants and commercial uses are permitted on this property. The part that comes into play here is the drive-through part of this that changes that aspect into becoming a conditional use.
And that's what has to be granted by the plan commission, right?
Right, that use has to still be approved by Plan Commission and Common Council. So it is chicken and an egg. Both the CUP for going to Plan Commission and Council and this application for a variance were placed at the same time. So we recognize that if this board feels it appropriate to hold it, then it shall be it. But if you felt it was appropriate to take action with any sort of conditions potentially also applying, you could also do that.
Steve,
Well,
what
to
would you
stop,
like to do?
To me, it seems like it seems like an awful spot to put a drive-through considering how busy that spot is, but that being said, I don't think that's our business either.
Steve, if I can interrupt you for just a moment. Since you have opened the hearing, you should hear from both parties before you deliver.
Okay,
Question of waiting.
I was
okay,
gonna suggest that anyway, so, let's hear it then.
all right. Now we're going to hear from the applicant. So would you please state your name?
I do, Barb, just before we move on, I do have one.
Oh,
more-
sure.
I am just curious if this type of situation has occurred before for any other variance requests, or is this unique to this property of the three-sided street for the window?
So as far as having a three-sided development where we're looking at a drive-through question on a fronted road.
Well,
Correct,
wondering
property.
if there's a similar situation that, or is this the first time that in recent?
I think the one you might be referring to is over to the west where there's an Uncle Mike's Bake Shop.
Okay.
That does not have a drive-through on that property. So they didn't have to go through an appeal for that specific use over on that area.
Gotcha, okay. Then I do not have any more questions, Barb.
I've got one more quick question.
Sure.
So the property on the other side of Ontario, is that owned by a credit union for a potential bank? Would that drive-through window idea potentially come into play there as well if we're considering precedents and things that are going through with that?
That's a good question. So right now it's zoned rural residential, but the comprehensive plan does not call for rural residential in that area. It would call for commercial purposes or some sort of higher intensity compared to what it has been. It is owned by a bank. But that said, while there have been, I would say, discussions about possible development in that area, nothing's been formal whatsoever. And I don't know if that's necessarily for a bank purpose or for other commercial purposes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for staff? All right, hearing none, we will move on to hearing from the applicant. Applicant, please state your name and your address.
Joel Airford, 2260 Salt Strider Court, Green Bay.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Sure, the site is, like staff noted, it is fronted on three sides by a street, and compounding it is the access is restricted off East Mason, there's no access allowed off Ontario, and my driveway has to be 200 feet from the intersection of Finger in Ontario, so it is pretty much, driveway is pretty much the only spot we can put it. And then, as he alluded to, there is really no spot to put anything other than to try to get a variance. And we applied for the conditional use, we realized that it was out of order is the right word, but out of sequence perhaps, but if we submitted both the same day, the Board of Appeals happened to come up first in the schedule, that's why it fell that way. But leaving it to March, because we're gonna need a variance. That's not in question. We need a variance. Otherwise, we're gonna lose, 6, 8 weeks of our schedule if we have to go to March, because I can't get a site plan approved until I get a variance and the conditional use. So they both go hand in hand. It won't work one without the other in either situation. As far as precedents, I think we did a Martin cleaning that had a drive-through on the road, and I bet you Popeyes on the west side. Cause that's a similar situation. That's fronted by Mason and Taylor and whatever that side road is. So I don't think you'd be setting precedent, in this application, but I wasn't involved in that project. I don't know for sure, but it's a similar situation. And we're putting, we put a lot of thought into where we're putting these windows in the drive-through order, board. We're trying to screen the backside of the building. We didn't want all that parking up against, even though there are only two residences on Finger Road. We were trying to keep the parking isolated and screened. The same thing with the window. We didn't want to have the drive-through pickup lane on the east side because everybody in line would be shining their lights on those folks' homes. So we tried to hide it as best we could by, your headlights will be facing East Mason, which is busy, and then it's in a business park on the other side. So, we tried to put some thought into, being a good neighbor and placing that which had the least amount of impact possible.
All right. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I can
Go
go
ahead.
ahead if you want, Barb. Or, I guess with the intention of being a 5-tenant building, was it putting that window in there for a drive-through just to open yourself up to more possibilities where you'd be fearful that you wouldn't be able to fill them all? Or is it, are you more expecting more restaurants? Or, I obviously don't know what you're looking at filling the place, but it just seems, I don't necessarily want to say odd, but I'm trying to understand more of why you want to do it that way.
The tenant one space, the one we're talking about for the drive-through, is projected to be a coffee shop. And typically, you'll see a coffee shop kind of serves as an anchor, so to speak, in today's current retail environment. So then, peripheral, tenant spaces pop up, like if you look around, you'll see like a Starbucks, and they're often accompanied next to them is like a Vision Place or Shopko Optical or US Cellular. They seem to kind of follow each other. So I'm not aware of any tenants that they have lined up for 2 through 5, but tenant 1 is projected to be a coffee shop.
Kind of a follow-up then to, if we're looking at that, being that it is a strong residential, and I guess the shortness within regard to the drive-through lane, what is your plan for having, I guess, wraparound traffic if it backs up into Finger Road or causes additional issues onto the street?
Well, the queuing is, I believe, 14 vehicles. So and more than meets the city's ordinance.
Okay,
The city ordinance is 3 in front of the window and 3 behind the window and 3 behind the menu order box.
I didn't dimension.
Is that leading from the parking lot or from the I guess, because I'm envisioning people are going to come in that only single driveway, and if they're coming for coffee, they're going to take a right there. How many people are going to want to come straight through in there, drive around the entire parking lot, and then come back in? I just see a traffic nightmare there.
No, the lane on the north side or the top of the page, that's gonna be signed as the drive-through lane. That will only be served the drive-through. Everything else will function.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying that if you're coming in through the drive-through, if let's say it is backed up, if car lanes are backed all the way up to to the entrance off of Finger Road, is the expectation that any cars coming in are going to have to go all the way through the lane and then create your line in the other side, or are they going to back up into the street?
No, they would, typically not back up into the street. You would have to go around, but, you know, keep in mind that a typical coffee shop order is 3 to 5 minutes probably. If you have 12, I'll do the math in my head easier if I just use a 12 vehicle. Although I think we have more than that,
Mhm.
that would be an hour. I don't see a lot of. you don't
Well,
see a lot
it's a
of-
pretty large residential area and growing that comes through from a traffic standpoint. And if this is the easiest coffee shop, I mean, honestly, that's my biggest concern with having that. I mean, but I'll let others speak to them more because to me, it seems like a nightmare.
If, as a purveyor of drive-through coffee shops, because I live near, Mason and Military, where there's apparently like 5 of them now. If I see 14 cars in line, I'm going to a different shop. It's just that simple. You know what this looks like to me in terms, if you want to visualize it a little bit? I know it's in a different jurisdiction, but if you look into Pier, on West of Pier on Main Street near McDonald's, there is a Starbucks that looks just like this. The only difference is it comes in straight off of one side. And that is it works out in terms of number of cars. It's actually shorter than this. I don't like that parking lot, but that has nothing to do with whether or not it would work. So John, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be going back to you. So it looks to me like, you've got 14 cars through there and then parking all the way around, and it's coming off of Finger Road. Can you, John, can you just remind me again what we're voting on?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
what's at play here is not so much the drive-through itself. It's that you have a directional signage here that would note to enter the drive-through that is in front of the facade. You have a menu board area and an order box that's in front of the facade, and a window pickup that is in front of a facade of a street. So,
I see. Okay. All right. All right. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm now clear.
no, I mean, I was enjoying that. I wish you'd give me clear. So it's really the menu board we're talking about, right?
It's
Isn't that it?
right, it's the menu boards and the window to pick up that face between the building itself and the street.
On the street. Okay.
And what is the exact, I can't go back and look because I can't see you guys if I do that. What is the exact variance part of that?
I'll go back to
Just
that.
having them.
Thank you.
No drive-through windows and menu board shall be located between the front face of the principal building and the street. You have 3 front faces on this because you're facing.
Well, yeah, right. That's what I was gonna say. It's all facing the street, right?
Correct.
I
Well,
mean, how would you get away with it? Because it's all sides are the street. Okay, okay. I think I got it.
I think I've got it too. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't have any more questions.
I think I kind of, yeah, I have a clearer picture. Any other questions for the applicant? Anyone else wish to speak before we deliberate?
Yeah, I'd like to speak.
Okay, who is that? Is someone else I have to swear in?
yes, just one moment.
My name's Steve Munville, 21705 Rockville Road, Peel, Wisconsin.
Okay, and do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, please proceed.
Well, I kind of like the concept of where it is, but since you guys brought up the traffic issue, I wasn't gonna comment on that, but since you guys brought it up, that is gonna be a nightmare. I will say that right now. That street, you cannot back out of those driveways the way it is right now. Unless you could figure out a way to keep those cars off of Finger Road, and I have no problems with it. But since you guys brought it up, I wasn't gonna say anything, but you brought it up, the traffic. That, if they start backing up into that street, that is a busy street. And that is gonna be a nightmare.
Well, and thank you for that. I think our purview, though, doesn't cover that. Wouldn't that be more what the plan commission has to cover?
You guys brought it up.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
If that use, the conditional use is appropriate on a parcel. And that's where the argument by the applicant in that situation would have to prove to the plan commission and common council that there's enough queuing space to allow for cars to be in the drive-through and not create that situation to neighbors.
Especially
Right.
a driveway across from another driveway there. Those people won't even be able to get out of their driveways. Now, I know this is probably
So-
for a spot to say this, but you guys brought up the traffic issue.
I mean, yes, thank you.
I apologize for that. That was mine. I mean,
No, yeah,
I was just
yeah.
going like, how can I approve the window and the queue, everything like that? And my mind just went to, it doesn't make sense.
And
Sorry.
thank you, Corey, but
I
I
was
think
gonna
what
ask the
we
same
have to,
questions anyway, so, yeah.
we just really want to stick with the menu board in the window and then let another commission deal with this obviously concern. It is a concern. It's just not our personal concern right now today. Right, John?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much for testifying. All right. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, then let's deliberate. Steve, do you have something? You seem to.
Yeah, I mean, so setting aside all of the other concerns around street management and whether or not it makes sense to put a drive-through there on Finger Road, because that's just not within our purview. That's the
Right.
common council. In terms of preservation intent, I don't think that particular ordinance was written with this particular piece of property in mind. This property is weird. I know exactly where that is, and that's a strange piece of property. With three sides on it like that. I also don't think, since it is zoned commercial, that it's unreasonable to necessarily have a drive-through. So I don't think it would be necessarily against the intent of that, especially since there are no reasonable options to do otherwise. In terms of exceptional circumstances, well, we have a weird three-sided property that's bordered on three fairly major roads actually. That's also not terribly normal, especially considering how skinny the property is, and the way it's oriented and the various storm water collections and everything that goes with it. Preservation of property rights. I believe in this particular circumstance, for the owner of the property to be able to use it for the commercial purposes for which it is intended, they would be it would be allowable for them to get a variance based on preservation of rights. Absence of detriment. The signage itself, again, confining my comments to just the signage. The only thing I could think would be perhaps something that would say that the signage cannot be lit past a certain time, or if I don't know if there's already codes for that. That would be my only concern, that for the houses behind, that the menu board isn't blaring into their front bedroom every day.
Can I check
would
that
be my
out
only
real quick?
concern. Yeah.
Steve, before you go on, is that indeed an ordinance already, John?
So when it comes to the conditional use permit and properties that are like this, that are adjacent to residential parcels, you can think of the Starbucks and Hardee's on East Mason Street that has been done in the past decade or so. Those are also conditional use properties, and that's where staff generally puts in conditional uses as recommendations to the plan commission and to the common council as far as operations for hours when that drive-through is lit, or using as a speeding capacity that is different from the typical code. Because the typical code can go longer into, say, 10 p.m. at night, and there have been further restrictions on properties like that. And we intend to, in the CUP itself, place those same or similar restrictions that have applied to other properties in the past in similar situations up against residential neighborhoods.
So we don't need to really concern ourselves with that particular piece because that's probably covered. That's more what
I
plan would do.
handle it.
But yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. And
And then hardship. So in this particular circumstance, you could, I mean, it could comply with municipal code, but I think it steps on so many other things in terms of use of the property. I do not see this as being self-imposed.
Right.
This is probably the softest point for me. I don't know that you have a right to make a drive-through. But that being said, I also don't think that given the condition of the property and everything else, that it is that there is hardship to comply here. Does the compliance with the way that property is and the where he must put the driveway if we don't want to do another variance for the driveway, it kind of keeps him from really taking advantage of this with any sort of drive-through. So I would say that this fulfills number 5 hardship as well. That's my opinion on the matter.
Thank you. Corey or Benjamin? Any comments?
I'm having trouble with regard to the signage facing the residential sides, kind of to that lighting issue and basically being a detriment to those residents. Traffic going through there, I mean, depending on what hours of the day they open, maybe there's third shift workers, maybe there's kids that are in there and having additional, I mean, standing traffic. I don't know. I guess I'm just stuck on that. It just doesn't seem to be in the best interest of that area.
The menu board.
The
or
menu
the
boards,
sign.
yeah. The menu board and the windows. I mean, if we have to approve, I mean, the window on it too, because that's part of the variance, getting the window because of the menu boards and the window, just having that lane there. I mean, our part is only the windows and the boards, but you
Mhm.
only have those there if you have the drive-through lane. So
But
they're
we
all
don't-
tied together. I know we can't speak to it, but I'm just
Corey,
saying, yeah,
we have to narrow it down.
I know,
I guess
but I just,
I think
it's,
about it. Think of it this way, Corey. Trust staff that they're going to do this because John's right. They did just put that Starbucks in on East Mason.
mhm,
It's up the road from my doggy daycare, so I'm in there like 3 days a week. And their menu board does face a residential neighborhood and the side of somebody's house. I guess, I mean, if the common council and the planning board is going to approve this at all, which I think there is some question whether or not they'll even approve this. I don't think I think that conditional use of that signage would probably come with it. I mean, we can make it a condition, but I think that that's just kind of layering the bureaucracy on when I trust staff to have the best interest of the city in mind.
okay.
Ben, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think just right beforehand, I'd say that for most of the points that I would concur on what's been discussed already. I just wanted to bring, just as part of the discussion and, if we're talking about having a window in these areas, that would be in compliance, there really would be no other safe spot to really put it. You know what I mean? Is that this is a very unique property and that just kind of looking at the site plan, it would be very difficult to imagine a design that would be other than this. I just wanted to bring that to the attention as well.
Thank you. I will agree with you and I will agree with the points that Stephen made. And in my mind, I think we've covered all of the 5 points. Would anyone like to make a motion on this variance?
Barb, can I interject for just 1 second?
You sure can.
I know you all discussed all the elements. I didn't want to interrupt earlier, but I just wanted to remind you that you all wanted to discuss the possibility of holding it. I didn't.
We did. I did. And I didn't hear anyone bring that up, but does anyone still want to hold this? Or do you think we can make a decision tonight?
I think,
For my part, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
oh no, I just was about to say, just in terms of, I don't think that it would be fruitful to hold the decision on this just because of, what the applicant discussed for a chicken or egg situation is that, if we're discussing approving this with the conditional use permit, I don't think there's any potential risk or any change in decision that would be made in the future by this board. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Steve?
I would agree with that. That rationale hangs well with me. I also think that while I tend to not want to have things come in beforehand, And I'm inclined to not do that. I don't think there's any harm in this particular spot.
Okay,
And it was just
Or-
gonna slow it's just gonna slow the owner down, and I don't see a reason to do that.
okay. Corey?
Yeah, I'd agree. There's no reason to hold it up further. I think some of our conditional ones in the past had greater consequences than this one would.
And I would agree with all three of you. So at this point, would anyone like to make a motion?
I motion to approve the variance as requested by the applicant.
Okay, motion by Steve. Is there a second?
Second with an amendment?
Well, okay, we might have to, yeah, what would you like to propose as an amendment?
That
Or-
the conditional permit is issued.
Oh,
That the other side of this chicken and egg situation.
To add-
okay,
You're talking about.
I mean, they can't build the building without the conditional permit, right? I mean,
right. I mean, the building's.
they
but
can
go
have
ahead.
our approval left and
Lindsay,
right, they just can't build the building, so.
Lindsay, do we need to say that in an amendment?
I just wanted to clarify, Corey, that you were looking to, add that as a condition on the granting of the variance.
I mean, I think that's what we've kind of done in the past with them before, is like when we've had two different boards, but yeah, we need the condition that the other one is approved, that ours gets approved.
I just wanted to make sure that that was what the, motion for the amendment was.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Barb, our recommendation would be that you absolutely include that as a condition, because if you don't, if the CUP ends up not being granted, but you've granted the variance without the condition, then someone, like, you could still put like, that variance would still exist on that property, whether that conditional use permit's
I
approved.
see. All right. Do we maybe want to go back and have Steve restate the motion, because a second wasn't made, so we don't have to go through making two different motions then. Is that all right, Lindsay?
If no second has been made, you could just Steve could withdraw his motion and make a new motion that
Okay.
includes the condition.
Steve, would you be willing to do that? All right.
Yes, I withdraw
Let's-
my motion, and just to get the verbiage right,
Yes.
the condition is that what entity am I saying has to,
The CUP
the what?
has to be approved by the Plan Commission and City Council.
Planning Commission, okay. So, I move to, approve the variance as the, application asked, with the condition that, this will only go into effect if the Planning Commission also agrees, to it.
And City Council.
Also, yes.
Yes, and City Council. Is there a second to that?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Corey is going to second that. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I,
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, applicant. Your variance has been approved. All right, moving on to number 3, which I will have Steve again read for me.
all right. Okay, so, appeal number 24-03, consideration with possible action on a request from Scott, and I'm going to screw up your name, sir, and I apologize, Kowasinski of Horizon Development Group, applicant, and the City of Green Bay Redevelopment Authority property owner, requesting to exceed setback and building bulk requirements within an office residential district at 1035 of Vanderbrack Street and 1030 Weesey Street, and the northeast intersection of Vanderbrack and Clay Streets.
So I will ask us to affirm again that please confirm the following for this appeal by stating I confirm. I do not have a conflict of interest in this matter. I confirm.
I confirm.
Okay. And I have not received any communication from any person or party about this matter. I confirm.
I confirm.
All right. To move on now, I will we'll hear from staff, and I will swear in Mr. Leroy. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So, just go past it right here. The property that we're looking at here is the Old Eagles Club property. So this is an aerial photo that was from earlier this year before the building was removed. This is a part of one large development. We're gonna have to look at this through the lens of, there'll be questions about the west side of the property, and that's these two parcels right here. And the east side of the property, that's these three parcels right here. And so what to keep in mind, while they're right now 5 complete separate parcels, the parcels on this need to be combined on the west side, and 3 parcels on this side need to be combined. We're looking at it through that lens, that'd be 1 parcel on the west side, 1 parcel on the east side. This is a part of a whole overall project, but there are separate questions for each one of these individual variance requests. So I want to keep that in mind. This right here is the site plan for the overall property. It is possible you may have just seen this site plan in passing. This was in the press back in November. And I should say, a site plan that was similar to this was in the press back in November. We've been working with the applicant to dwindle down these variance requests bit by bit to make this work. There are 3 requests on the west side, 3 on the east side. The approximate numbers, I believe at one point there were 7 on the west side and 5 on the east side. So applicant has been working to get this to be down as little as possible. But to go over what has been happening, just as a preview, building A, 3-story building, 36 units, correct? Yes. With some commercial on the south side, parking underground, parking, surface parking on the west side of the property too. Coming off of the parking, coming off of Weed Street. East side, building B, 2-story building, 16 units in total, 10 detached garage stalls, 15 surface stalls on the north side. So there are a number of things that be considered as far as, does this meet requirements and parking standards and impervious surface, things of that sort. And what this should come down to is 3 different questions here on the west side. So in 44-620, table 44-6, 1, the floor area ratio. In this district, which is OR, the max is 1.0. The minimum is 0.3. A lot of situations we're having that question be the minimum, this one's the maximum. So just to refresh everybody, as far as floor area ratio, it's the space in which there's actual activity in a building where there's floors. So if this is a 3-story building, you add all that up and you divide it by the square footage of a parcel itself. This one ends up being about 1.17 or so, as far as being over that ratio that there's compared to the overall square footage of the property, which is a little under an acre, happens to be a little over an acre of building floors that are requested. Additionally, the maximum pervious surface within an OR is 60%. On this side of the road, I believe the number is 67% is what is being requested on this side of the property. So a bit more background. This is zoned OR as far as the district that was rezoned in the recent past to try to get development to happen in this area of these 2 parcels, because he already had put out requests to try to make things work. Staff put this in the OR designation because it was a good broad spectrum to try to get folks who might be doing multifamily, might be doing commercial, might be doing mixed use. Along this area where you have some intensity along Webster in that corridor, and it dwindles back down into being a lot less intense as you get to the east and you get to more single family homes and duplexes. So that was the thought as far as why this property is zoned OR. Is a recent change, but because it was an older designation when it was Eagles Club, and it's been changed to this OR. So to give that in context, let's just say this was happened to been changed to neighbor commercial. That impervious surface is 80%. We wouldn't be talking about that question at this point if we happened to, as a staff, said, let's do neighbor commercial for this, but OR was the designation, and so it doesn't quite hit the mark. So additionally, the third part of this is 44-620, table 44-6, subsection F. At least 60% of the front facade must fall between the maximum and minimum setback lines. Your minimum setback line with an OR is 0 feet. Your maximum is 15 feet. Kind of like the last question we just had, looking at this property, there's 3 sides to this property. There's Webster, there's Clay, there's Vanderbreck. On all 3 sides, the front facade of a building, wherever that building happens to be, has to be set back between 0 and 15% for 60% of the overall face of that that won't. That is accomplished on Clay and it's accomplished on Vanderbrack. However, on Webster, it doesn't meet 6% along this. You can see it's 10 feet right here, but as Webster keeps on going back towards the southwest, the building stays predominantly a rectangular building. Typical rectangular building, so it does not meet that for that part of the property. So that's, again.
Because, John, because it's beyond 15 feet
it's
more
be-
than, or it's
Yep,
what?
yep. Setback,
Okay.
that maximum of 15 feet along Webster. Where the
Where's,
building-
it's that little, well, I can't point to it, but yeah, okay, all right. Now, we're just gonna take one side of the street at a time, right? We're talking
You do one
3
side-
variances on this, what?
So it's those, and that's, we can just look at that right now. Those are the three questions, is FAR, it is impervious surface, and it is, the amount of, linear footage alongside of the front facades. But you have three of them here, along Webster, Clay, and Vanderbrack.
So I remember when we have more than one variance, we can, I think Lindsay, this is correct, we can speak to them like as a group and lodge them each under, like, we can talk about preservation of property in exceptional circumstances. Or do we have to take each one individually and do all 5 things?
So for each variance, you will need to hit all 5. It's possible there may be overlap. So for preservation of intent, it might apply to all 3 variance requests or just.
I
as a-
see. Okay,
So you know, when you're going through the elements, you can say, I think this one applies to all 3 variances, but maybe, you know, one of them is different for one of the variance requests. And so you'll just want to make sure that for each specific and if you're going to have one, like if your reason for preservation of intent is the same for each of the 3 variance requests, you'll need to specify how, when you're just like, make sure that you cover all 3 requests when you talk about that first element. Otherwise you will have to go through them one by one and do all 5 elements, even if you're repeating yourselves. We just want to make sure that that each element is at least somewhat specific to each of the variance request.
and then, and further, would you agree that we should take each side of the street separately, so we're not trying to deal with 6 things at the same time? Or should we try to take both sides?
That's really your call as chair. You could theoretically do each variance one at a time, so it's the same as doing 3 at once and then the next 3 separately.
I think I saw nods from my people on Zoom that we should do one side of the street and then the other. Correct, Stephen?
Before you move on though, Barb, I just want to clarify with staff. So just go back to the makeup of this particular parcel for me, please, because right now, it's a few different parcels?
So right now, this is still 2 parcels that are gonna be combined into one on the west side.
Okay.
And is 3 parcels to be combined into one on the east side.
Sure,
It has not gone through as far as getting that, but as far as if there were approvals, conditions to be in place to say that these parcels actually become one. The intent when the RFP was placed in the public was that you'd have 1 parcel on the west side, 1 parcel on the east side,
sure.
to make development actually occur on these.
And this may be something that the applicant can speak to, but is there a timing issue? That's why we need the variance now that you know of? Sorry, I'll get to you in a minute, but what I'm getting at is that each of these parcels right now, as they stand, they're not the parcels that you're talking about. So if you grant a variance, it would apply to the parcels that exist today when the variance is granted. So if they are later consolidated, that variance will not exist anymore because that parcel did not exist at the time that the variance was granted. So I understand there may be a timing issue as far as, you know, building construction, all those things. I don't know if that's what the hangup is, but this would be something that, from our perspective, we would recommend that this be held until those parcels have been consolidated. Because otherwise, all the work you're doing today is essentially for nothing, because they'll have to come back once the parcels have been consolidated and request the variances.
Okay, so the issue with this is when it comes to these type of redevelopments, there are potential tax credit issues that come into play. And there has to be assurances that the site itself could actually work for these properties. The uses are just fine. There is no question as far as these uses are acceptable. As far as what they are placing on there, that's where we have the questions here today. Is there a hardship that these properties have that make them unique, that would require having these variances approved? So, in order to continue to have the process go forward with tax credits, there needs to be assurances that these parcels can actually be functional. And if they're not, then those tax credits cannot be applied for.
Unfortunately, the board can't, and we can go into closed session if you all would prefer to speak to this, if the board members would prefer to speak to this in closed session, but the board can't look at an application and prospectively approve it, like say that if these parcels get consolidated and this new parcel exists and the same application comes back, then we'll definitely approve it. The board can't do that. It has to be an application on a parcel that already exists, because the board doesn't work in hypotheticals.
Well, can we make the approvals on each individual parcel and make those sticky to any future parcels?
There'd be a different set of variances though, potentially than what's listed.
Potentially, yes. Because if you look at hypotheticals for where a building lines up with a property line, yes.
It doesn't seem like we can proceed on this.
Is there anyone that's interested in going into closed session? To discuss?
We need to? I mean, I've heard, I don't know why we would need to have closed session. We talk about it.
Since this is a bit of an unusual situation procedurally, Barb, would you be okay if we open the floor to let the applicant speak?
Well, certainly, we certainly can do that. So applicant, I will have you come where you are at the table. Could you please state your name and address and go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Scott Kuzinski from Horizon Development Group. The address is 5201 East Terrace Drive, Madison, Wisconsin, 53718.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment. It's a great question to bring up. I just wanted to offer a little bit more insight on kind of the timing of everything and why we're making this request this evening. So as staff commented, we're intending on filing an application for tax credits. That application is due January 26th. It's a Friday at the end of this month. I think that's the right date. It is, Luke? Yes. Okay. So part of that application and the threshold review for WHEDA, that's Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority, is that the site has permissive zoning in place. And while there's permissive zoning in place, technically to build what we're intending or to develop what we're intending on, the specific configuration of the building, the number of units, the floor area, all the things that we were going to talk about, there's a few things that need approval in order to proceed. And if we end up being in a spot without those approvals, we go forward with our application to WHEDA. We fast forward until May is when they're going to make announcements. We get an award of tax credits. We have to reserve those tax credits within a 10-day period of time. And that comes with a significant financial responsibility as well. We have to write a check out to reserve those. And then if we subsequently come back to this board and that's not approved, then we're kind of stuck with that risk, I guess. And that's the reason why we were trying to gain confirmation of these. I'm wondering, I'm just asking a question, if these variances can be discussed and we can get an understanding if these are things that everyone's open to. I don't know how it all works, but that's kind of my idea, so that when we do come back in several months, if that's what is decided, then we would not be too worried, I guess, about what the outcome would be. That's just some thinking that I was doing as I was hearing discussion. Thank you for the opportunity to explain.
Can I please hear from legal counsel?
Just in response to that question,
Yeah,
I mean, the answer is the same. I mean, we can't speak, the board can't speak hypothetically, so we can't, well, you know, our,
Tell us what we can do.
Yeah.
How do we get around this? Tell us how to do that.
there's not a way around this.
there isn't.
If
Okay.
you wanna
Why
look
not?
at the parcels as they exist and grant all the variances that you would need, theoretically, you could do that, but they haven't all been presented to you, and that's not what's on the application. So, you would be granting variances on a
Mhm.
parcel that does not exist. That's
Mhm.
not within this.
Let me ask a question. In the application, what are the parcel numbers?
In the application itself.
The original parcel numbers are the separates?
Right, let me find this.
They're each individual parcel number.
We'll grant them on each of those with the condition that they have to be combined for it to take effect.
Yeah,
Now we don't have to, then we're not making anything speculative, or we'll grant it on both of them.
What, Lindsay, can we do that? Can we grant them and put a condition on?
Grant it with the existing parcel numbers. That way there's no phantom parcel number.
In this particular case, the problem is not that that there needs to be a condition of future consolidation or anything like that. The problem is that as soon as the parcels are combined, the variance ceases.
I'm understanding what our attorney is saying. I don't see a way around it. What I'm
Mhm.
wondering is, can we have an emergency meeting if needed? Because of the timing constraints.
Before we go there,
I guess the question is when are the parcels combined to one?
That was my next question. That was exactly it. Does anyone know by what date these parcels are supposed to be combined?
the parcel, if it was agreed upon by the RDA to do such a thing, can just be combined because they're all owned by the same owner. So they can be combined within a matter of a legal description to combine this into one parcel on one side and one parcel on the east side.
Well, then when can they do
When
that?
do that, and when do they have a designation?
Yeah,
The issue would be as far as the RDA giving approval to make certain that they'd want to take the parcels and make it for certain into one parcel. Because typically this happens when all agreements are agreed upon by all the parties, in a situation like this. So there
I
has
have
been.
another suggestion that will satisfy this. It'll mean more work for the board, but it will satisfy what the applicant needs in order to get his tax credits with WIDA. So what I would propose is we approve it on both sites. All right, and well, just talking about the west one right now, and assume this is the same for the east one. We approve it on the sites as it's asked in the application. What this is going to do, this is going to give the applicant reasonable and understandable reassurance that this board is likely to pass this again when we're asked again over the full thing, because he doesn't actually need the variance today. He needs the reassurance that we're likely to pass them.
and yeah.
And we can give
I
him
see
that
that.
by just giving him it on the individual parcels that we have today. Now that means this board's going to have to do this mess all over again.
The only,
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't bother me. That part doesn't bother me.
yeah,
But
neither.
if we legally can be doing this tonight is what concerns me. Okay.
There's no legal thing to it. We can approve
Okay.
that on the individual numbers. We have parcel numbers. We can give 2 variances for each part. We can give the variances on each parcel, which means we'll have to approve it twice for,
Just-
the west and 3 times for the,
Just as a
east.
devil's advocate to that being an alternative, my voice counts tonight. But when this gets voted on again, say 5 months down the road, if I don't have a vote, someone else has a different opinion on that. I don't know if that's the same assurance that can be given.
It's reasonable assurance, not guarantee. And
No.
that's all the applicant is looking for, that the climate is positive. Because all he has to do is reassure WIDA that the local officials seem to be leaning in this direction. And I think we can give him that, even if your vote wouldn't count at that time, or if someone else voting at the time would say no. Because he's not looking for a legal guarantee that he's going to get this. Because we can't give it to him. We've been told that. All he needs to know is that the board in its form right now, I mean, I might get hit by a bus between now and then too. But I think from a standpoint, at least my understanding of how these things go, is as long as he can honestly say the board leans in that direction, and they'll have to revote on it, but they approved it the first time in the form it was, we are reasonably assured they will do so again. Again, assuming we would approve.
So we wouldn't be actually taking any type of vote or any motions then this evening.
No, we would take a vote. We'd probably take a vote 5 times. Right, maybe up to 15, depending on how picky we need to get about it.
Good God.
You'd have to go through the whole thing, and then we have to do it again twice when it comes around. But from looking out for the city of Green Bay and the residents of the city of Green Bay, this
Okay,
is a blighted area.
okay.
Those spots are not great. The Eagles Club has been disrepair for years. I guess they've torn it down now, I guess what John said.
I think so.
That's an area that could use help. And that neighborhood next to there could use a lot of help. And this might be part of the start of it. The work of the redevelopment authority, I think, is worth it. And I also don't think the city of Green Bay should pass up on tax credits that we possibly get from WIDA, because we're having a bureaucratic problem.
Okay, let's move forward. I'll just decide as chair. Because we can sit around and argue and then we're still gonna move forward. So it's 6:11. We got a lot of work to do. We'll take each of these individually. So John, we're gonna need a little, but I guess do you think we heard enough from the applicant? Do we need to hear more from the applicant?
Well, I think the applicant would probably want to discuss this as far as the specific measures to each one of these.
Just for the record, as you're moving forward, I just need to state for the record that you're doing so against legal advice.
Oh, shoot.
Well,
Okay, it's time to go into closed session. I mean, I would like to go into closed session. I have the words here.
Motion?
And I will make
Does
a
that need a
motion. to go
motion?
We'll come
in- I will make a motion to go into closed session. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and then I will read the words from an other agenda. The board may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.85, 1A Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating concerning a case. Is that the right one to read?
Go ahead, you're okay, finish this and then John has a comment.
Okay, quasi judicial or quasi judicial trial or hearing before the governmental body, the committee will thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.852 Wisconsin statutes to take action on items discussed in closed session, if appropriate, and to consider the remainder of the agenda. And there was a second on that, and John, you have a comment?
Yeah, the applicant would like to make a comment here before we go into closed session.
Yeah, I'll be really brief. I'll just say our tax credit application will go in with those exact parcels that we had just saw on the screen, as well as that are contained in the application. So the variance that is or isn't approved this evening would be directly in alignment with the parcels that we're applying for. So from a WIDA perspective, we would be consistent. It's just then post award, we would have to combine those lots and then come back before the board for basically the same approval, but it would be on combined lots versus separate lots. So that would be our own risk, because we know that there's different things that happen over time and opinions that are changed, et cetera, but as one of the board members was alluding to, that would at least give us the confidence of knowing that this group at this point in time is on the same page with us in terms of how we want to proceed. So thank you.
Based on 5 different parcels, not based on 2 different parcels.
That's right.
Hearing that, attorney, are we still, if we did move forward, is it still against legal advice?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll continue. We'll go into closed session then.
I believe we have to vote on that.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so I think it was 3-1. So we'll go into closed session. I just want to hear what our attorney has to say.
As one of the.
Right. I'll
Move to
entertain a
open session.
motion at this time to go to open sessions.
Sure.
Motion by Steve. Did
I
you
motion
say
to open the session. I thought
Okay.
it was
Second.
quiet.
second? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. We're in open session. Proceed. We will now hear from the applicant. And please, would legal or John ask the questions that we would like to have answered?
Sure, so, as, I alluded earlier, one of the, issues is that the parcels are not currently consolidated into, the 2 parcels that will exist in the future. My computer just died. Oh, no, there, okay, my apologies. So, one question that we wanted to ask is if the RDA were to swiftly move to consolidate the parcels and the board could meet again before your application is due, would that changing of the parcels into 2 smaller parcels, would that negatively affect the WIDA application?
Could it be revised essentially? Could it be
Oh.
revised to include the specific
Could our application
parcels?
be revised?
Right, would it impact a lot of the,
Content.
whatever you have to fill
No,
out?
I think we would have the ability to modify our application. I think I'm understanding is that the 5 parcels would be combined into 2, one on the west, one on the east. We're okay with that. I just kind of call into question like the timing of it. Obviously, that's on you guys to figure out, but the applications due in like 9 business days. So that to me is a little bit of a concern because you have to have RDA meet, you have to then combine the parcels legally, and then this group gets back together, and if that all can take place, then it's good with me. Luke, do you?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe we have to have RDA meet to consolidate,
Okay,
so that's one hurdle.
Okay,
Okay, so given that that wouldn't present a hurdle for the applicant, would the board, like to, well, I guess first, I would, suggest, Barb, that you entertain the motion that we discussed as far as, holding.
holding. Okay, so yes, I will entertain a motion to hold this until early next week, until a meeting can be, till RDA can meet, and then we will have a special meeting early next week. So I will entertain a motion to hold this until next week.
Yeah, I would keep the motion simple to just hold it until next week. Because like Matt said, RDA probably doesn't have to meet.
Right. Okay,
So,
so
Motion
is this,
that we hold this meeting until next week.
okay, is there a second?
Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. Did you want to, oh, you're gonna hold the whole thing rather than hearing any additional testimony tonight? Is that the?
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
decided that that because of the other members that aren't here.
Okay. So.
Yes, because
um,
we were gonna ask them, we were going to see if the applicant could come in and possibly even if it's a Zoom meeting and during, the hour or so that we are going to have this special meeting that will meet with everyone's calendar. So,
Thank you. I got mixed up. I apologize, Barb.
Okay.
I believe there's a
And,
motion.
and so applicant, just so you know, that request will be coming, but it can't tell you when exactly the meeting will be. All the stars need to align, but I'm hoping that it's going to be Monday. That's my hope. So, and then you guys will just try to make it, even if it's by Zoom.
Yes, I was gonna say, even by Zoom.
If we're okay coming to Zoom,
Yes,
that'd be
if
great.
you
Oh,
want,
yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. All right, I mean, Steve, you were you made a motion.
Okay, so, I motion that we, hold this until next week, where we can have a meeting.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Corey is seconded by Corey. All those in favor of holding this until we have a special meeting next week, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So just applicant to tell you the expectations, is RDA will figure out how to combine those into the lots. Our group will have a special meeting and put the time in to get, because we know that you need to have this application in by the 26th. So hopefully if you can zoom in early next week, and who's going to be the person that's going to be communicating to the applicant? Would that be John?
That would be, yes. So we,
Okay.
with, all of you as well as Noel and Josh, as to their availability, and look to do this on Monday then. Since it's via Zoom, I'm just putting it out to the folks. Is there any possibility that people might want to do this at say 4 o'clock, or is that too early?
Probably too
Sure.
early for Joel, I think. But I think I could make it work.
Monday,
Make it work. That's fine.
yes.
I'll be doing the lifeboat drill and the cruise at that moment, so I guess I won't be there.
I think 4:30 can work. We'll make it, especially since we're doing this, we'll do this via Zoom, not in person. What I'm worried about is this room gets occupied around 5:30. With people who are coming into plan commission. So this will be virtual only then for everybody on that day.
Oh, good. Then you don't have to worry about the room.
No.
Great. All right. Anything, do we have to discuss anything else with this? Did I miss anything?
Other agenda items.
So I think
What-
we're all good with that one.
Okay, informational, which is the date of the next meeting, February 19th, 2024. And I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 And we are adjourned. Thank you all for your patience and for working through this in a legal manner. I appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.